What's up, y'all? TBrown31 here with JaboctheGreat. Once again, we are back with another episode of the Last Word Podcast. And today we are going to basically give the eulogy for the Dallas Mavericks in this series in the 2024 NBA Finals. We're going to come into this video, try to do some deep dive and analysis, but I mean, what is there really to say? Boston, they've played a great series so far, outside of some times where the Mavericks are able to come back, make it a game. But this, we both picked the Celtics. I mean, so it's not like, we're going to be eating crow here. I picked them in 7. I can't remember exactly how much you picked them in.
7 as well.
Okay, so we both picked them in 7. So the only thing we're wrong about is probably how many games the series is going to go. But I just did not expect this series to come out like this. 3-0 Boston. The first game, let's just get into it. First game, 107-89 Boston. I mean, this one was a butt whooping. I mean, there's nothing really else to say about that. Like, Kyrie took a whole lot of criticism early in this series, before game 3, where he incredibly popped off, was the best player in that game by a wide margin. But Kyrie in that first game, 6 of 19, only 12 points. Not what we needed for Kyrie, to start this series, and something we talked about in this last video when we did our preview. You're going to need Kyrie and Luka to score 30 points a game, like for them to be able to win. And as great as they played against the Timberwolves, as great as they played against the Thunder, and you can criticize Boston for their path to the finals and everything, but as great as the Mavs played, there's no way they can win this series if Kyrie and Luka didn't both put up 30 points a game each. And I figured they would in those games that they would win to push it to 7. Game 1, Kyrie only scores 12. That's not how you want things to go. Luka puts up 30. PJ Washington gets 14. Derek Lively, only 2 points for him. Pretty much everybody was in the minus or plus minus, except for Dante Exum and Dwight Powell. So, I mean, overall butt whooping from game 1. I mean, there's not really too much to say here. Jason Tatum, for him, not the greatest game. 16 points, not really good shooting, less than 40%. Kristaps Porzingis was really the big story coming in. He missed like 10 and 11 straight games. He comes in, plays for the first time in a month. Plays really well. Like they just didn't have an answer for him. They let him hit a couple threes, and the Celtics after game 1, it looked like they were just going to cruise to win the series, and they still are pretty much anyway. But based on game 1, man, I thought it was over right then.
One was like a harrowing experience to just like have Kristaps come out and play super, super good. I mean, he gets 20 overall, but he had a good chunk, like I think half of that in the first quarter when he just came out ready to play. Hit all the shots he could hit a few back-to-back threes, and then it just feels like, well, game 1's out of here. That's it. I mean, before the game's over, you get Jaylen Brown heated up as well. Jason Tatum, 16 for him, 15 for Derek White, 12 for Drew Holiday. Holiday's defense has been massive on Kyrie, especially in games 1 and 2. No answer for Kristaps. It's just been kind of Luka against the world, and even then, I mean, Luka hasn't had like the prettiest series. It's been a little ugly. Things aren't going super well for him. I mean, he's scoring, and he's just not doing super great on defense. And there's clearly improvements from what we think. Right? I think the NBA has a problem where when you say someone's a good defender, they're always a good defender, and if you say someone's a bad defender, they're always a bad defender. These can change. And Luka has been moving in the positive direction, but this series has been rough. I mean, if he's in the paint, it's just like, well, there they go, right past him. But it's been a tough series. And in game 1, I think really I started to think like, 7 games. But I thought back and I thought, well, the Mavs had a bad time against the Thunder to start off with. They went down 2-0 and brought it back. Obviously, got themselves to the finals. And most of their losses are always bad. They can't lose normally. They're always falling apart, and then they, it's never like it's in their grasp, or if it is, they blow it massively, which is what we'll see 2 games later after game 1. But game 2, similar to the Thunder situation, not as bad by game 1 by any means. They play a lot better, try to lock in a little bit more. Kyrie's still not super great, 16 points, just not super amazing shooting. Misses all of his 3-point attempts. You had PJ Washington playing a little better. You had Daniel Gafford doing a little bit. Luka again is playing, but Derek Lively again, just 2 points for the rookie in his second finals game. Maxi Kleber, not a good series. 0 for 4 in game 2. Josh Green 1 for 4, and then Dante Exum is 1 for 1. Funny enough, again, Dante Exum, one of the few people positive in this game for the Celtics or for the Mavericks as far as plus minus goes. And then for the Celtics, this one is this game 2 is big for me as a Bucks fan. Drew Holiday, my beloved, 26 points, 11 for 14 shooting, shoots amazingly well, hits half of his threes, only take 4. Gets a good bit of rebounds, gets a few assists, big on defense. Drew Holiday just comes out and has a game, and alongside him, Jaylen Brown gets 21, Derek White gets 18, Jason Tatum gets 18. This is more of your classic Celtics game. Kristaps gets 12 in this one, still looks pretty good. Doesn't seem to be super rusty. A little kind of lingering effects from the injury in this one. His injury, by the way, that he ends up sustaining is like it's a super long medical. I don't know what he did, but it sounds really, really bad. I think he's okay. I think he'll be back. But it just it's a lot of terms that sound really rough. But he did get to come in at the very least for 2 games. I mean, if they, if the Celtics close it out tonight and they win in 4 games, Kristaps still pretty big for at least half of it. But Drew Holiday in this game, again, that defensive presence, super unmatched. 78% from the field to put up 26 points. Just kind of out of nowhere. Has one of those hot games offensively. We always know that Drew's going to be really good defensively. The issue that he had on the Bucks was that I think sometimes he had to be too much of a scorer, and it's just too much to rely on all the time. But occasionally, you can let him have a night like this, and he's just going to give you everything you could want. So 11 for 14 shooting, puts up 26, gets 18 from Derek White, 18 from Jason Tatum, and 21 from Jaylen Brown, who I think has been the most consistent on path to be Finals MVP so far. Right, you had a big game from Kristaps, you had a big game from Drew. I think Jaylen is kind of the hero of Game 3. Tatum has not been the most efficient scorer, and there's been plenty of our most amazing scorer for this team. He's definitely not efficient in Game 2. He shoots 6 for 22 to get that 18 points. Not what you want. 1 for 7 from 3 is a really tough one. You can just kind of feel it. I mean, his shot is just not falling. But he's still out there facilitating well. He's out there getting rebounds. I'm not going to say that Tatum is failing. I do think that it's interesting as him as the number 1 option has clearly he has not had a game yet where he's been the guy. And I think it would be a massive disservice to basketball if he ends up being Finals MVP. But that doesn't mean he's been playing horribly. He's been out there facilitating. He's been rebounding. His defense isn't bad either. But Jaylen Brown, especially through games 1 and 2, and then game 3 for sure, has been the most consistent Celtic to get out there and kind of give it his all every night on both ends of the floor. And I really think that what game 2 showed me was that it might not be like the Thunder series. The Mavericks might actually be cooked. Drew Holiday and Jaylen Brown and Derek White have been too much for the Mavericks on either side of the floor. Right, they're not able to stop them from scoring, and they're not able to score on them. And that has been a really, really tough thing for them, especially with Jaylen Brown actually being able to dribble to his left in this final series. His handle's there, his defense is there, his scoring's there. Drew Holiday has not been a liability on offense. His defense is there. Derek White has been not. The game 2 really started to make me think that Dallas and 7 might be the only option. And then I'll let you take it over. But as we get to the result of game 3, Dallas and 7 is the only option if it's going to be Dallas. But it looks more like it could be Celtics in 4.
Yeah, I mean, if anything is going to happen, I think it's probably, you would like to think that the Mavericks can win tonight, and then they'll lose in game 5 and it'll be over. But yeah, we at least saw the Celtics last year. Like, they almost did it, against the Heat. And obviously the Celtics were supposed to be a better team than the Heat last year. Take out, this year, of course, with Jimmy Butler being injured, they were still a better team anyway. But even though they were more evenly matched up last year, Celtics were clearly still a better team, and they should have won that series, but they didn't. But they were down 0-3, tied it up, and then it's just a toss up in game 7, right? I mean, we never seen a team come back from 3-0. Of course, we've seen 3-1s, and famously the Cavaliers in 16. But I guess theoretically, I mean, once you win 3 straight games, does it matter? Like, once you get to that game 7, it's one game for the championship. So sure, I mean, it's possible, but I mean, it's probably like a 5% chance that happens. I mean, the Mavericks, they've had opportunities. We were talking about this before we got on here, and we'll talk about it, especially for Game 3. Luka. Obviously, we're not going to compare Luka's defense to someone like Jaylen Brown, or definitely not a Drew Holiday or Derek White, even Jason Tatum. Anybody, even Peyton. Anybody on the Celtics, really, any of those guys. Like, we're not going to compare Luka in that sense to them on defense. Like, it's not the same. But you said it. I'll say it. It has been pretty disappointing to see him defensively in this series. And once again, he's got to chill out with the rest. It won't matter now because the series is almost over. But at some point, he's got to learn to be smarter than this. And people have been talking about it in the series. They gave Kyrie criticism for the first 2 games shooting wise, but Kyrie's being the level-headed one here. Like, Kyrie's got to say to Luka, like, look, you got to chill out. You're not helping anybody by beefing after every single call, whether it goes one way or the other way. He's got to chill out with that. Again, it probably won't matter with this series being over, in all likelihood. But that is something he needs to take to heart going forward, because I think he'll continue to get better. He'll be a great player in this league to come, for years. But it is just frustrating to watch, and I've said it before, but it's on full display in this series here. But offensively, of course, he Game 2, 32 points. He was obviously the guy in Game 2. He did get a little bit more help, from his teammates. And in this one, Derek Lively, you mentioned it though, only 2 points. So that's probably a bigger, I don't want to say bigger, but that's probably another disappointment, because how big Derek Lively was, going back to the games he was able to play outside the injury in the last series, in the series against the Thunder. So going from that to now the finals, where he's not really being able to do much of anything, just 1 for 3 in Game 2. Disappointing. Kyrie, you said it. Not good shooting in this one. And Jason Tatum, 6 of 22. I texted you this, so I said it in jest, but it is funny to see if Jason Tatum might be the first superstar carried to a finals. He's still contributing to the team outside of shooting, right? Like, shooting's not the only thing. But I'm a little disgusted at how bad he shot in Game 2.
Yeah.
It was bad, and he kept taking them. It's like, stop. Just let Jaylen Brown take it. Let Derek White take it. Drew Holiday in this one, he took it, 26 points. And you mentioned this before, a problem with Milwaukee, his time there. He did win a championship, of course, but having to rely on Drew Holiday to be that, number 3 or possibly number 2 scorer in that big 3 to win, not necessarily what you want to do. You want to rely on his defense. You want to rely on his playmaking. And if he comes up in games like this, putting up 26 points, he's not going to do that every single game, obviously. But when he does, let him cook and be happy about it. So, big game from him. Jaylen Brown probably, you said this, I agree with it. He'll probably end up being Finals MVPs unless something crazy happens over this next game or next couple of games as things turn the Mavs way. But for all intents and purposes, right now it's Jaylen Brown leading the way. And he led the way in Game 3. Now, Jason Tatum did outscore him 31 points. Jason Tatum did shoot a little bit worse than him, though. Made 1 less shot, but took 4 more. So percentage-wise, it's much bigger difference than what I just outlined. Derek White had 16 in this one. He had some clutch threes there. Drew Holiday, you turn right around and nice was 9 points. It's like, hey, no big deal, because you don't need Drew Holiday again to score 20-something points in every game. His defense is really where it counts there. Sam Hauser, he came in with 9 points off the bench, so good minutes for him as well. And this one, Kyrie and Luka both put up about, 60 points in this one. So I don't want to say Luka had a bad game, because it's weird to say he had a bad game when he scored 27 points. But in totality, getting fouled out the way he did, you can argue, maybe some of the fouls weren't fouls, but accumulating 5 fouls before you get 5 minutes, I think he hit that last one like maybe like 5 minutes left in the game, 4 or 5. Like it was pretty late at that point. And you get fouled out, trying to draw a charge from Jaylen Brown who's coming up court. That's just stupid. Like, and I'm sure a lot of people have said the same thing too. It's just dumb. Like I don't. He's got to be smarter than that. Like you're sitting at 5 fouls. It's the NBA Finals. You guys are on the cusp of a comeback. For whatever reason, Jason Kidd called timeout. You can mention that one. That didn't make any sense there. When they had the ball, they were on a run. But you're on the cusp of a comeback, trying to win this game. You decide, you see Jaylen Brown coming at you. You like, let me draw a foul. What are you doing? It didn't make sense. And, they took it to replay. And as much as I would have liked to see Luka stay in the game, I didn't want them to change the call just because of that. I mean, if he gets fouled out, he gets fouled out. That's his own fault. I mean, I think back to like the 16 finals with Steph Curry, game 6. He got that 6th foul because he was trying to be aggressive. I can't remember who was inbound. It might have been LeBron. I can't remember exactly when he got fouled out, but he was being super aggressive, trying to grab the ball. He gets called for the 6th foul, throws his mouthpiece, gets pissed off. I can understand being angry. Same as Luka in this situation, but you got to be smarter there. Don't even take that chance of trying to draw the foul when you have your 5th foul already. It's such a pivotal moment in the game. And you could talk about the defense of Luka not being the greatest in this one. You are a big fan of Luka on defense, as you can eloquently state. I'll pass it back off to you. This one kind of sucked because you get such a great performance from Kyrie. And I know you missed that big 3 at the end of the game trying to hit that 16 finals shot again. But you take such a great performance from Kyrie and you pretty much squander it with how things ended up at the end. Tim Hardaway Jr. We hadn't talked about him at all in this video. As Tim Hardaway Jr. Tim Hardaway Jr. basically has done diddly squat. 19 points, 5 shots, 3 of them threes. Didn't make any of them. Minus 16 plus minus. 3 rebounds, 0 assists, 0 steals, no blocks. Didn't even get a foul or a turnover. I mean, he was just out there running. So, I mean, Tim Hardaway Jr. of all people, the son of Tim Hardaway, not being able to make a shot is hilarious. And it's just all those things that's going on. Like even when the Mavs get a good run, things come back and they squander it like that. And so it's just a combination of a bunch of nonsense for the Mavericks and great all-around basketball, despite not the greatest shooting from their number 1 guy in Jason Tatum for the Celtics. Ends this series. I ain't got nothing else to say.
Yeah, game 3. The whole series. I'll talk about Mr. Tim for a moment here. He got a 15-point per game guy in the regular season. Always there to kind of fire up the Mavericks towards the end of the games. Get some big shots. Not here in the playoffs. He plays 7 minutes in game 1. Goes 0 for 2. He's an equal plus minus. I mean, he's just out there. I guess there's nothing. Ain't that horrible. Game 2, Jason Kidd said no. Tim Hardaway doesn't play, and then for some reason in game 3, Jason Kidd reverses that decision and thinks, well, Tim's got to bring it out at some point. We'll play him for 20 minutes, and then as you said, minus 16, 0 for 5, 0 for 3 from deep. Just does a little bit of cardio, except that cardio results in a minus 16 performance in a game that they don't lose by anywhere near 16 points. It's a tough one to be minus 16. But I mean, the Celtics just played much more dynamic basketball, much more coherent basketball all 3 games. Game 2, really, you got to feel for the Mavericks. They've been waiting for Kyrie to show up. Kyrie shows up, and again, the rest of the Mavericks, Derek Lively kind of gets it a little bit. But, Derek Jones Jr. not able to get much together. P.J. Washington, not too much. Daniel Gafford, not doing a whole lot, right? Gafford and Washington go from the bottom to the finals and can't really perform well in the finals. Which, again, this is a hard team to perform against, right? I mean, if you're Daniel Gafford, you're playing against, Al Horford, who's proven that in the playoffs he's just a tough defensive matchup. It's just something in him. Doesn't matter how old he is. He's playing well. You might get KP. You don't in this game because he's injured. But you do get 10 minutes of Xavier Tillman in game 3, who I do want to give a little bit of a shout out. Ends up being +9, 1-for-1. He hits one big corner three that they leave wide open, and he knocks that down, which is pretty big considering how close the game was at some points. That was towards the end of the game. But Xavier Tillman's defense has been really good. His 10 minutes of playing yesterday or 2 days ago was all defense. He was just running around. Randomly became a Luka stopper. Had some big moments on some other players. Derek White, as far as defensive moments go, as well, had a massive moment. And with that huge block at the end of game 2. So the Celtics have just been too much on offense. They've been too much on defense. It did feel like this was a better team anyway. Like obviously we both said Celtics in 7. I fully believe that the Mavericks would push them a little bit, and the Celtics would be able to kind of hold it together and persevere. I don't really think the Mavericks have pushed them that much. I don't think the Celtics have exerted that much effort. Game 2 is probably the most effort they did. Now, Game 3, they are down for a little while. Right? Mavericks come out swinging, but then it ends up not matter. They just can't hold on to it, and the Celtics storm right back. And before the first quarter is even over, it's 30-31, and that big lead that you were building up is gone. And so it's just a tough one. I think the Mavericks are outmatched. I thought they were outmatched anyway, but I thought there would be at least enough Herculean power on some of those Mavericks players, and you could probably get one good game from Gafford, one good game from PJ, and steal a game here and there.
Yeah.
But with Kyrie not quite being there in the first 2 games, Luka's issues on defense and handling the refs, and the Celtics just staying completely locked in and completely composed on defense and offense, this one seems really tough. Maybe they get one tonight in Dallas. This is a fun fact. I'm visiting family. I'm here in Dallas. I will not be at the game. I don't have finals ticket money, but I could be here in the city tonight as the Celtics get crowned the champions for the 18th time in NBA history, first time since 2008. But I feel like maybe this is the time that finally, once at home, Luka and Kyrie stop themselves from being swept, and then most likely get closed out in Boston. But I won't be super shocked if the Celtics just stay composed and we get another game when they come out and overpower the Mavericks. And all the scores have been pretty much the same, so I won't be too shocked tonight if the Celtics sweep the Mavericks with a 107-98 game. It seems to be the formula so far. So this one is tough. I feel the same about the conference finals. This was a really fun playoffs, and then it's just kind of suddenly flatlined. Thought the Mavericks would at least be a little bit more of a challenge for the Celtics, but Celtics are a super well composed team. They got obviously they swept the Pacers, but they were definitely more pushed by the Pacers, which is a really weird thought. I just don't think the Mavericks got it in them. I'm gonna have to shift that. Obviously, prisoner of the moment, but it was always Celtics from 7. I think now it might be 4. So I don't have high hopes for the Mavericks tonight, even with Scott Foster as the crew chief. I don't think that Scott and Luka are gonna have a good time with each other.
Do you think there is any single path out of maybe a million possibilities, like we're Doctor Strange out here? Is there any timeline where the Mavericks have a shot at winning this series?
I think things are always possible in sports, right? Nobody's ever come back from 3-0, but it's got to happen at some point, right? People said that.
So you mean no? Is that what you're trying to say?
I mean, no. I think it's got to happen at some point, but I think for the Mavericks to do it, I think you've got to get like the best basketball possible out of Derek Jones, out of PJ Washington, out of Daniel Gafford, out of Derek Lively, and Kyrie and Luka every single game. And you need Maxi Kleber and Tim Hardaway to stop being non-existent. I just don't think they get that 4 times in a row. I think that's way too much to ask. It was somewhat different, when you go down 2-0 to the Thunder, and then you can start bringing it back. Once you're down 3-0 to clearly the best composed team in the league, yeah, that's a tough one to get out on, right? Like the Celtics last year are down 3-0 to the Heat. The Heat are just a gritty, angry team. They bring it back 3 games in a row. But even then, that team last year for the Celtics is still a well-composed Celtics team. Weren't able to do it 4 times in a row. The Heat had their number in Game 7, walked their way to the finals. I don't think the Mavericks can do this. It would be interesting. We'll talk about that for generations, but it ain't happening.